Hi, I'm Ella.
Hi, I'm Fatou.
Hi, I'm Fatmata.
Hi, I'm Marlenny.
Hi, my name is Ella, and my two topics are the significance and the advancements in the industries that emerged during the Second Industrial Revolution and the advancements in transportation and communication during the Second Industrial Revolution and how they affected internal and external migrations during the 19th century. So my first topic is going to talk about the significance and advancements in the new industries that emerged in the Second Industrial Revolution and how they led to new possibilities in production and transportation. So the Second Industrial Revolution led to numerous advancements, one of them being in the industries including steel, chemical, and electricity. Steel came to be figured out as much more superior in strength and durability compared to iron, which is what most factories previously used in terms of production. The method for mass manufacturing of steel came about in the 1860s, although it did not become widely available until the 1870s. The Bessemer process, invented in 1855, made it possible to produce steel as ingots. Ingots are characterized as the main raw material for processing things such as hot rolling, forging, casting, to then produce a variety of products used in construction. Steel production became faster, cheaper, and much more consistent. The Bessemer steel was used for innovating ways of transportation such as ships and railways. Railroads could now hold heavier and faster engines in cars. Steel also allowed for the construction of larger bridges and skyscrapers, ultimately increasing industrialization and productivity. In the late 19th century, both the quantity of production and variety of chemicals expanded, impacting the Industrial Revolution. Major technological investments such as the superphosphate of lime used in fertilizers in 1840s and the plastic developed in 1856 and the industrial production of soap from vegetable oils all advanced labor environments. Workers were able to use antibacterial hand soap, creating safer working conditions and limiting the spread of illnesses. Advancements in chemistry led to the development of new materials and products and paved the way for new pharmaceuticals and medical treatment, which led to a greater life expectancy and lower death rates. Chemicals were also introduced into agriculture, and new and stronger fertilizers were created, leading to lasting food longer and producing greater amounts of food at a quicker rate. Okay, and so furthermore, even though electricity was introduced during the First Industrial Revolution, its industry expanded and became much more relied on in its Second Revolution. Electricity allowed for factories to be built on a larger scale and for production to be carried out much more efficiently. Before electricity was introduced, many industries were powered by steam machines. In 1831, scientist Faraday discovered an electric current, which became revolutionary. By 1832, an electric generator had been built. This allowed for new, improved source of energy, which improved workers' lifestyle and overall way of living of people during the Second Revolution. By the 1870s, an electric motor was created and electrical-powered machines began surpassing steam-powered machines. Electrification allowed for the development of assembly lines and mass production, leading to manual labor decrease. In 1881, the first electrically operated streetcar was invented. That same year, the first electric railway was opened. New ways of transportation meant faster and more efficient ways for people to get around. Transportation became much more relied on and much more flexible, growing urbanization. And for my second topic, I'm going to be talking about how the advancements in transportation and communications affected both internal and external migrations during the 19th century. So, advancements in transportation and communication as a whole increased migration from all over. To be more specific, let's start talking about railroads. Through the Bessemer process, which I previously explained, the cost and time required to produce steel dropped dramatically. This led to companies being able to lay more railroad tracks and expand railway systems. This allowed for more flexible ways of transportation, which ultimately led to an increase in urbanization. Railroads created more job opportunities, therefore more people migrated towards cities to fill in those jobs. Also, external migration increased. Railroads made way for international transportation. Chinese and Irish immigrants became a significant part of railroad workforce. It became much easier for migration everywhere. Another specific advancement in transportation and communication was steamships. The first steamships came into practical use in the early 1800s. By 1870, more than 90% of immigrants arriving to America came on steamships. Steamships shortened the length of voyage and allowed for new settlements as families could emigrate together and permanently settle in other places. More males migrated on a temporary basis looking for work. With the invention and innovation from the Industrial Revolution, the immigrants provided for cheap labor. Steamships facilitated the expansion of international trade, which led to the growth of industries and economies, opening more job opportunity and encouraging internal migration. Steamships could carry mail, newspapers, and information between continents at a much faster rate. Adding on to this, the advancements in the telegraph led to faster communication and transportation, which impacted both internal and external migration too. The telegraph was important in the development and management of rail system, which helped bring settlers westward and enabled the expansion of trade. The telegraph facilitated the expansion of trade networks, leading to an increase in urbanization because it enabled businesses to have a greater communication, attracting workers to move to cities near those industries.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Fatou, and I'm going to be discussing the spread of industrialization. My two topics in this section will be comparing the industrialization efforts between Russia and the U.S. and the industrialization process in Latin America. I'm going to compare the industrialization efforts of the United States and Russia first. While Russia's industrialization occurred in the last stronghold of absolute monarchy, where the state had far more control over people and society than anywhere else in the West, the United States industrialization occurred in one of the most vibrant democracies in the West. Diving into the Russian Industrial Revolution, the process began in 1890, partly due to the reforms carried out by Alexander II and Sergei Witte. Referring to our primary source, Sergei Witte, the Russian finance minister, wrote a secret letter to Tsar Nicholas II. He mentions if we continue to carry our commercial and industrial system consistently to the end, Russia will at last come of age economically. Opening Russia's new railway network made it easier to build and run factories, mines, dams, and other projects by enabling travel to even the most remote regions of the empire. Russia's industrial economy advanced faster in 10 years than it had in the preceding century. Economics Alexander Gershkron eventually dubbed it the Great Spurt due to its extremely rapid expansion. Now, the American Industrial Revolution was primarily focused on strengthening the nation. Near the close of the 18th century, Samuel Slater established the first cotton mill in the United States in Beverly, Massachusetts. Using new manufacturing technologies he brought from Britain, this was a significant turning point in the early stages of Industrial Revolution. In the aftermath of the Civil War, American industrialization accelerated rapidly. The nation experienced significant growth in the first half of the century, and the newly acquired land was abundant in natural resources. The cities offered the working class new employment opportunities. As a result, the Industrial Revolution marked the start of the U.S.'s shift from a rural to urban society. Moving on, the industrialization process in Latin America during the 19th century. Many Latin American countries became more stable in the second half of the 19th century and began to integrate into global economy as a result of the industrialization of the United States and Western Europe. Industrialized countries acquired food products, raw materials, and markets in newly formed Latin American states. Their exports included silver, copper, nitrates, tin, guano, raw rubber, bananas, and so on. In exchange for these goods, Latin American countries received textiles, machinery, tools, weapons, and luxury items from Europe and the United States. Latin America was experiencing economic and population growth. To protest their harsh working conditions, Latin American urban workers formed mutual aid societies, organized unions, and went on strike. 90% of the population belonged to the lower class. Economically powerful groups benefited from agricultural product export. The political leaders supported free trade. Latin America's economic growth was fueled by foreign investment. Latin America came to rely on European and North American prosperity. Many U.S. companies formed alliances with landowners and politicians in Latin America to establish businesses there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Marlenny, and I will be discussing the reactions to the industrial age. You may be wondering, where did socialism even come from? Socialism emerged as a reaction to capitalism mainly due to the perceived injustices, inequalities, and exploitative nature of capitalist systems. The beginning of socialism can be traced back to the Industrial Revolution, when capitalism was rapidly transforming societies in Europe and other places. One key point explaining how socialism emerged in response to capitalism was the inequality and exploitation of the working class. Capitalism in its early stages led to significant wealth disparities and the exploitation of labor. Industrial workers faced harsh working conditions, long hours, low wages, and minimal rights. Here, I have a primary source, which is an excerpt from the testimony of Joseph Hebergam to the Sadler Committee. This testimony directly describes and explains how the harsh labor conditions gave the witness a terminal illness and how the work conditions at the mills caused death and severe injury to others. With the way the hard-working people were treated, this began the thoughts of socialism. Socialism emerged as a reaction to capitalism due to its perceived failures to address inequality, exploitation, and social injustice. As socialist thought began, there were two ideologies of socialism that were formed. The main goal of socialism was to propose different visions for achieving a more equal and just society. However, both ideologies were really different. Marxism, which was made by Karl Marx, created and proposed a revolutionary path to socialism. A main topic that Marxists argued was that the history of society is the history of class conflict between the owners of the means of production and the working class. Marxists also argued that in order to stop capitalism, they needed to have a revolution. This revolution would supposedly end the exploitation of the classes. Marxists envisioned a classless and stateless society where the means of production are collectively owned and controlled by the workers. The other socialist ideology is utopian socialism. Utopian socialism did not advocate for revolutionary upheaval, but instead proposed gradual and peaceful reforms to achieve socialism. Utopian socialism advocated for social reforms such as education, labor rights, and the creation of cooperative companies to improve the living conditions of the working class and promote social harmony. Even though these ideologies are a little different, they both played important roles in shaping the development of socialist thought during the Industrial Revolution. The labor movements during the Industrial Revolution were a crucial period in the history of workers' rights and organized labor. These labor movements were characterized by the emergence of labor unions, strikes, and the articulation of workers' demands for better wages, better working conditions, and better social reforms. A common labor movement at this time period would have been the formation of a labor union. In response to these conditions, workers began to organize themselves into labor unions to advocate for better wages, shorter hours, and improved working conditions. Another labor movement that occurred were strikes and labor action. One notable example of a strike and labor action is the Luddite movement in early 19th century England, where textile workers protested against the introduction of machinery that threatened their jobs. These labor movements also contributed to significant legislative changes aimed at improving working conditions and protecting workers' rights. Workers organized themselves into labor unions, engaged in collective bargaining and staged strikes and protests to demand better wages, working conditions, and social reforms. These labor movements of the 19th century played a crucial role in changing labor laws, creating social policies, and the broader struggle for workers' rights and social justice to change. Some of the key demands that were put forward by labor movements during this time were shorter working hours, fair wages, safer working conditions, an end to child labor, the right to organize and collective bargain, social welfare reforms, and political rights and representation. The labor movements of the 19th century employed a variety of tactics to advance their goals and achieve success in improving working conditions, wages, and rights for workers. Some of the tactics utilized were strikes. Workers would organize walkouts, work stoppages, and boycotts to disrupt production and draw attention to their grievances. Another tactic used was collective bargaining. Some labor unions engaged in collective bargaining with their employers to negotiate wages, working conditions, and other terms of employment. Another tactic used was direct action and civil disobedience. Labor movements sometimes employed direct action and civil disobedience tactics to challenge unjust laws and practices. These were all forms of nonviolent protest aimed at raising awareness, generating public support, and exerting pressure on authorities to enact reform. All in all, these tactics laid down the groundwork for many of the changes to the labor rights and social protections that exist today.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Fatmata Odhiambo, and today I'll be discussing the responses of the Ottoman Empire and the Qing dynasty to European industrialization in Asian states. In an effort to adapt and modernize their economics and armies in response to European industrialization, the Ottoman Empire and Qing China did the same. However, elite organizations and government officials frequently opposed these initiatives. Let us begin with the Ottoman Empire. The Tanzimat reforms, which attempted to alter beliefs about government organization, education, and technology, were started in the Ottoman Empire in 1839. New codes of criminal and commercial law were introduced. The army was recognized, province representative assemblies were established, and a new system of secular education was developed. Now moving on to King China now. King China responded to Western imperialism in the middle of the 19th century by attempting to modernize, adapt, and fight. Resistance was the first response, as demonstrated by the Opium Wars against Britain. Leaders also started to launch businesses in the fields of industry, trade, and transportation. They obtained modern steam-powered machinery, which prompted the building of China's first railroads and steamships.
Thank you.
In conclusion, the growth of the emerging industries during the Second Industrial Revolution impacted mass production, increased industrialization, created new jobs which decreased manual labor. As for the advancements in transportation and communication, impacting internal and external migration, they facilitated trade and communication, they increased interconnectivity and allowed for new job opportunity.
Russia's industrialization occurred under absolute monarchy, while the United States' industrialization occurred in a vibrant democracy. Latin American countries experienced stability and global economic integration due to these industrializations.
All in all, the socialism ideologies and the tactics deployed by the workers have left a lasting impact on political and economic thought, shaping discussions about social justice, workers' rights, and the role of the state in shaping new societies.
In conclusion, a few Asian governments, most notably those of the Ottoman Empire and King China, sought to modernize and reform their armed forces and economies.